freedom. And we are recording. Guess what, folks? It's a Sunday, yes. It fucking is. Time for a bit of What's Up. So, for the people that missed last week's What's Up, the EcigClick poll is now open. It opened up about a week and a half ago. This is just for the folks that missed the announcement. The announcement of it opening last week. Link is in the description. Grab a cuppa and get yourself a couple of biscuits, and take 10 to 15 minutes to work your way down the entire poll. There is a good number of UK-based businesses and UK-based liquid manufacturers, that kind of thing, that are up in the poll this year. And the more people that take part in the poll, the better it is all round to get a good general idea of what the UK vaping populace is thinking. And also, of course, Vaping With Vic is in the UK reviewer section. Wink wink, nudge nudge. But yeah, the link to the EcigClick poll is down there in the description. Take 10 to 15 minutes to go through the entire poll, because there is a really good number of UK-based liquid manufacturers, UK-based vendors in there as well. That it's good that they get a bit of recognition, because it was the case in the early days of the EcigClick poll when not many people were taking part in it. That it was the big names, and it was always the big shop names, the big vendor names, the big liquid manufacturer names that always took the first 3 positions in the poll. But as more people take part in the EcigClick poll, much better chance for some of the kind of homegrown talent for liquid manufacturing, brick and mortar stores, the independent brick and mortar stores, to actually get within the top 3 placements. And it's good all round. It's good all round for the industry. Talking about homegrown stuff, there was an announcement that was made via email not that long ago, about 2 or 3 days ago, that Chef's Flavours is now closing its doors. This is going to be the main news bit for the What's Up. Now, if you weren't into DIY, you've probably never heard of Chef's Flavours. They did sell pre-made liquids. They did do bottle shots, but Chef's Flavours were much better known for being a seller of... What's this camera doing? Hold on, I need to pull this cable over. Camera decided to go for a little wander there. I'm still having problems with the Velcro. I've basically cheated and double-sided sticky taped the back of the Velcro. I need to buy a new strip of Velcro, but I keep fucking forgetting. Right, where were we? Yeah, we go. Chef's Flavours were much more known as a seller of flavours, as the name suggests. That's what they were known for, especially in the DIY community of the United Kingdom. And for some people, it's no surprise that they're kind of closing their door, because what's been happening in the internal markets for DIY enthusiasts in the UK is basically rising costs. Now, the rising costs, it was not a case of, cost of living crisis and all flavours immediately jumped up by 50%. This has been a slow creep that's been happening. It's been a very slow creeping increase in the cost for a bottle of, let's say, 30ml of flavouring. It's been a very, very slow increase. But as that slow increase accumulated over the past 2 to 3 years, especially during the COVID thing that went on, as that cost started to accumulate, it did start to become a little bit more expensive to make flavours and to sell flavours, especially, to such an extent that some of the more popular flavours, mainly in Aware, coming to think of it, but some of the more popular flavours, if you compare the price of a 30ml bottle of Inawera's strawberry, and you manage to come across a snapshot on Web Archive of that same bottle of 30ml strawberry flavouring from Inawera, and compare the price 3 years ago to the price today, there is an increase. Again, it's not much of an increase in the grand scheme of things, but if you're a DIYer and you're dealing not with just one flavour, but you're buying 15, 20 flavours at a time in one bulk buy, and on top of that you're also buying your Capella Sweet, you're also buying your PG and VG, which has also crept up in price, you start to notice it. You do start to notice it, and some DIYers probably more than likely decided to scale back on the amount of experimental DIYing that they were doing, because it was the case, in fact I'm guilty of this as well, it was the case that you used to just randomly buy flavours on sites like Chef Flavours. You just randomly buy it thinking, oh, I could maybe make something from that later on, so you just randomly add flavours to your shopping cart and check out. But as the flavours started to increase slowly, but they all started to increase slowly, a lot of people stopped experimenting. And because people stopped experimenting, what used to be a £45 or £50 checkout shop on Chef's Flavours all of a sudden became a £25 to £30 shop on Chef's Flavours. Now again, that doesn't sound like much of a loss, but if there's a whole load of people doing it, the bottom line basically is that profits made from DIYing is now on the decline, and they've been on the decline for a very long time. A very long time. And large centralised companies like Chef's Flavours that became the go-to place for DIY. In fact, I've shopped in Chef's Flavours a number of times as well, although I usually go to the E-cig shop, the mixologist shop, but I used to shop at Chef's Flavours a lot. But it is the case that the bigger centralised DIY places like Chef's Flavours, they're starting to feel the pinch, because it's not just us that's seeing the rise in the cost of living, it's them that's seeing the rise in the cost of living as well. Increased rent, increased electricity to keep their business going, increased everything essentially, increased postage, because again, Chef's Flavours had done most of their custom via the online shop. And if they're using Royal Mail, DPD, DHL, UPS, it doesn't matter, because across the board, shipping costs have risen. Everything's risen, and the announcement was made by Chef's Flavours that they're basically closing their doors. Now, this does not mean that all of a sudden DIYing in the UK becomes impossible, because Chef's Flavours were not the only online vendor of flavourings in the UK market. You has, as I've mentioned before, you have the e-cigarette shop, better known as the mixologist shop now, but they're still called it's THEE e-cigarette shop. The mixologist section, the DIY section's a spin-off of the e-cigarette shop, but you've got other flavour sellers still in the UK. But the fact remains, Chef's Flavours were one of the biggest, and they sold flavours that you will be very hard pressed to find in the smaller in the smaller flavour sellers in the UK. They were basically a one-stop shop. They were one of the few places in the UK that was a one-stop shop for a lot of the rarer or harder to find flavours, especially when it came to Inawera. I mean, I love the e-cigarette shop mixologist, but they've got some Inawera flavours that are basically missing from their lineup, but Chef's Flavours had them. That's why I kept using Chef's Flavours now and again. So, if you're a DIYer in the UK, you will have already heard the news of Chef's Flavours basically shutting down. But if you're relatively new to DIYing and you just started using Chef's Flavours, this is going to be a particularly bad blow for you, because it now means that instead of that one-stop shop for flavours that you were used to, you're going to have to probably spread your shop between 1, 2 or maybe even 3 different flavour sellers in the UK to get the flavours that you're used to using. And there has been many sections of the industry blamed for the closure of Chef's Flavours, with a lot of people screaming it's the fault of disposables. Hold on a minute though, if it was the fault of disposables, don't you think that other sellers like Darkstar, like the aforementioned mixologist / the e-cigarette shop, don't you think that they would have went belly up by now as well? Because Chef's Flavours were a very big company that was bringing in a lot of money. They would have been able to survive far longer than the likes of Darkstar and the mixologist crew because of the amount of people that were buying from them. It's not just a case of saying, oh, it's disposables, it's their fault. No, it wasn't. So you're saying that all of the DIYers that were making their own liquids all of a sudden up sticks and went, you know what, fuck this DIY pish, I'm going to buy disposables, because disposable flavourings in their e-liquids are awesome and disposables taste far better than any DIY flavour. No, fuck off. Oh, it's all disposables' fault. No, it's not. No, it's not. The disposable market is sucking up the middle of the vaping industry, the centre of it. And the centre of it is the people that use pods, AIOs and stock coil sub-ohm tank kits. It's got fuck all to do with the hobbyists. Fuck all to do with the hobbyists. You are not going to turn round to me and say, Vic, the reason Chef's Flavours went belly up is because all of a sudden 50% of all the DIY manufacturers and all the hobbyist liquid makers decided to stop using their RTAs and drippers and start using disposables. No. Here's the thing. Chef's Flavours felt the pinch. And it was a rolling pinch. It wasn't just instant. It was felt over a long period of time. Flavourings, for the most part, have to be imported into the United Kingdom. That's a fact. There is a small number of UK flavour manufacturers that make and produce flavours here in the UK. But the fact is, it's far cheaper, or at least it was far cheaper, to import flavourings from outside the United Kingdom, from places like the United States, from places like Central Europe, from places like Asia, and to a certain extent China, that make the much cheaper flavourings, like your base flavourings like strawberry, lemon, that kind of thing. Then Brexit happened. Now, I voted for Brexit. It's no fucking secret. I made it common knowledge that I voted for Brexit. But with Brexit coming in, the tariffs started to shift around. It was no longer a case of shipping is free from Europe into the United Kingdom. No, now there's tariffs involved. And large companies that imported in large amounts of flavourings, like in Awera that's based in Italy, for instance, large companies that imported in large amounts of flavourings like Chef's Flavours are now started to have to pay customs charges on the importation of the flavourings. They were already having to pay customs charges for the likes of United States based flavourings, but the bulk of what these companies that like Chef's Flavours were bringing in was coming in from the European Union. Simple as that. It was coming in from the European Union. Now, at the very beginning of this, as tariffs started to creep in, because there was no longer the free trade agreement that was going on between the United Kingdom and the European Union, as tariffs started to kick in, what Chef's Flavours and other flavour sellers done in the United Kingdom was pass on some of that cost to the general public. This is why we've seen flavours starting to creep up in price. But then COVID hit. Now, it wasn't just a case of COVID shutting down businesses, and it wasn't just a case of COVID shutting down the transportation of... See this damn camera. Seriously? It wasn't just a case of, in fact, you know what, I'm going to pull you off and stick you there where it's not going to peel off. Fucking seriously. I really need to fix this fucking... It's a strip of Velcro for the people that don't know. I basically stuck the camera to the wall. Yeah. I know I'm a cheap ass. I should have put some kind of monopole tripod behind the shelf, but nah, I'm too fucking lazy. So where was I going with this? Right, it's not just a case of COVID slowing down transportation or stopping transportation in some cases. It's not just a case of the shutdown of the supply lines. If you look at what's been happening after lockdowns stopped, right? After lockdowns stopped, there's the shipping crisis, which is still ongoing. There is the supply chain crisis, which is still ongoing. COVID was not just a short case of, oh, lockdowns, oh, fuck, oh, lockdowns are finished, yay. No, it's still ongoing. It's been ongoing for a very, very, very long time, especially when you're talking about shipping in flavours that are United States based flavourings. I mean, okay, granted, about something like 60-70% of the well-known flavourings are purchased from the European Union or made in the European Union, but there's still that 30-40% of flavourings that come from the US. The supply line crisis, or the supply chain crisis, as some politicians like to call it, is still ongoing. And as that supply chain crisis continues, the cost of shipping continues to creep up. And along with the cost of shipping continuing to creep up, the cost and demands raised because of supply line faults, because of tariffs now placed on the importation of liquids from the European Union, because of the cost of living crisis that's still ongoing, because of the raising of tax tariffs that are still ongoing. Chef's Flavours felt the pinch far too much. It's not a case of disposables bankrupting Chef's Flavours. It really isn't, because if disposables were 100% to blame for Chef's Flavours shutting their doors, then Darkstar would be the next one to go. There's no sign of them going anywhere. The E-cig shop and mixologist, they'd be the next one to go. There's no sign of them going anywhere. Nah, it's because of the supply chain problems. That's what it basically comes down to. And Chef's Flavours were getting in some of the much more rarer flavours that you would generally tend to find hard to come across in the UK. As their costs increased exponentially, our costs were slowly creeping up. Chef's Flavours, because they were in competition with other flavour sellers, couldn't go, there we go, that's all our flavours increased by 50%. They couldn't do that because they'd be putting themselves out of business. They couldn't. Now the question still remains, what kind of impact is this going to have? Not just for DIY enthusiasts in the United Kingdom, but what kind of impact is this going to have on the other flavour sellers in the UK? Because with Chef's Flavours closing their doors, what's going to happen next? All the DIY enthusiasts that were using Chef's Flavours are all of a sudden going to jump on to other, much smaller flavour sellers who don't have the stock to keep up and probably don't have the supply lines to keep up either. So with Chef's Flavours going down, are we seeing the first of the dominoes starting to fall? I personally think no. I don't think it's going to be a case of Chef's Flavours falls over, next it's going to be the mixologist, then Darkstar's going to fail. No, I don't think that's going to happen. But what I think is going to happen is that we're going to see major flavour shortages in the other flavour sellers within the United Kingdom, because Chef's Flavours took up a very large percentage of flavour selling within the UK. And with them closing their doors very abruptly, yeah, it's it's going to be a case that if you're a DIYer, I hope you've stocked up on your flavourings. Yeah, I hope you've stocked up on your flavourings, because it may get a little bit dicey in the UK over the next month and a half to 2 months, as the smaller flavour sellers, like the smaller flavour selling businesses, catch up with the demand that's going to be impacted on them by the closure of Chef's Flavours. Things could get a bit dicey over the next couple of months. It could get a bit dicey, but stop. I said I was bringing it back home in the review. But it is a case of a number of things that combined to basically force Chef Flavours to close their door. A number of things happened at the same time. Chef's Flavours were primarily known as a flavour a flavour seller. They were primarily known as a flavour seller. They did do bottle shots, but that wasn't the bulk of their trade. The bulk of their trade was flavours. Now you look at Darkstar. Darkstar's bulk trade is with the bottle shots. It's with the bottle shots. That's what Darkstar are much better known for. They don't really sell flavours these days, at least I don't think they do. I know they used to a long time ago. I don't think they even sell flavours now. But this will have a knock-on effect. Because, for instance, where does Darkstar get their flavourings from? It wouldn't surprise me if a lot of Darkstar, at least 50% of Darkstar's flavouring, was purchased wholesale from Chef's Flavours. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Where's Darkstar going to get their flavouring from? They're going to have to scramble and find new suppliers. This is going to have a knock-on effect. It's going to have a major knock-on effect in the UK side of things when it comes to not just DIY, but the likes of bottle shop manufacturers. Where are they going to get their flavours from? It's not as if Chef's Flavours were the only place that you could get the flavours from, but they were one of the biggest places. They were one of the biggest places, and they had some flavours that were very, very hard to find anywhere else in the UK. I think they were actually the first one to sell Inawera's Cactus in the UK as well, coming to think of it. That's a very, very interesting flavour, Inawera's Cactus. Very, very interesting flavour. But all I can do, and I know that some of the folks at Chef's Flavours sometimes tune in to the WhatsApp, all I can do is wish the staff and the owners of Chef Flavours all the luck and all the best wishes for whatever they decide to do for the future. It looks as if they're just leaving the e-cigarette industry altogether. That's what it looks like. But to all the folks over at Chef's Flavours, a massive thank you. Not just from myself, but probably from a large bulk percentage of the DIY folks here in the UK for what you've done for the DIY enthusiasts in the United Kingdom. And whatever you all decide to do in the future, I wish you all the best of luck in whatever path you decide to go down. If you're leaving the e-cigarette industry altogether, I wish you the best of luck. All I can say is, to the DIY folks out there, it's going to be a rough couple of months. It's no way around. It's going to be a rough couple of months. I hope you stocked up on some of the flavours that you go through very quick. I hope you've stocked up. Again, Mixologist, the THEE e-cigarette shop. They're based down south. They don't have as broad a range as, because I don't think anybody had as broad a range as Chef's Flavours had, but they do have a very, very large amount of flavourings. That might be your best bet, at least for now. At least for now, folks. I mean, there's always European-based flavour sellers, but then if you're importing in from the European Union, you run into the same problem that Chef's Flavours is running into. Increased tariffs. I don't know. I honestly don't know, folks. I really don't. Anyway, that about covers it for the folks over at Chef's Flavours. Only really one more thing left to cover. ECig 101. Yeah, I know. Oh, fuck's sake, here we go again, Vic. You were supposed to release it by now. I deleted all the footage. On purpose. This is why I don't watch my own videos. You know, this here's the thing. I mean, I honestly don't watch my own videos. When I record a review, I watch the table cam and I don't watch anything else. Because I hate looking at myself talking into the camera, because then I think to myself, you know, Vic, you could have worded that a little bit differently and shortened it, or you know what, Vic, you could have worded that a little bit, and it goes on and on and on, and then it turns into a whole series of fucking jump cuts, and it looks like a Rip Tripper fucking video where I'm jumping all over the place because I've cut out 2 words in the middle of a sentence in order to shave off 2 minutes at the end of the video. That's why I don't watch myself. I only watch the table cam part to make sure I haven't missed anything out, or I haven't royally screwed something up. I made the mistake of looking over the footage of the ECig 101 Season 2 from start to finish, and I thought to myself, I'm rambling far too much, and I'm also, and this is the biggest mistake I've done with ECig 101 Season 2, I started jumping into tech speak is the only way to describe it. So instead of ECig 101 Season 2 being all about stock coil sub-ohm tank kits and AIOs, but presented in a way that it's someone who's only been vaping for a month on a pod that's watching it, I started going into far too much technical stuff. Basically thinking to myself, well, you know, a one month long vapor is going to know everything he needs to know about batteries. No, they're fucking not, you tube. A 1 month old vapor who's been vaping on pods is going to know what a stock coil sub-ohm tank is. No, they're fucking not. I started drifting into my comfort zone. That's the problem. I started doing the videos. I started doing the ECig 101 Season 2 videos to people who were already vaping on sub-ohm tanks, which is not the point of Season 2. The point of Season 2 was to introduce the concept of stock coil sub-ohm tanks and sub-ohm vaping to people using pods. I had to delete all the footage. However, what I decided to do, and I'm going to be finishing it up tomorrow in the studio, what I decided to do last Wednesday, no, in fact it wasn't last Wednesday, it was last Thursday when I was putting the decorations up, was basically do one long continuous 2-hour recording session, which covered episode 1, 2, 3 and 4 of ECig 101. All about the introductions, all about battery safety, all about the introductions of AIOs versus stock coil sub-ohm tanks, and then drifting in to the introductions of AIOs. And what I'm going to be doing on Monday and Tuesday next week, once I've got the recordings for the reviews done, is finish off episode 4, 5 and finish off episode 5, 6 and 7, which goes in deeper into stock coil sub-ohm tank kits. And then as we drift further into the weekend, episode 1, 2, 3 and 4 are going to be encoded here at the house, and episode 1 and 2 is going to be launched next weekend. So what I'm planning to do is, this is going to be the weekend of December the 3rd and 4th. The first weekend of December is when ECig 101 Season 2 actually launches. And it's all going to be recorded in one long continuous take. And what I've done is, to make sure I don't drift into the fucking thing that I did with the original recordings, when I'm the way I've got it set up, right, I sit at the desk and the Canon camera's on a tripod about 5 feet away from me. However, I've got a second tripod sitting right next on lens level, so I can't fucking miss it, with my tablet on a tripod holder saying, keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. In other words, don't get too fucking technical, because the whole point in Season 2 is to introduce the concept of stock coil sub-ohm tank vaping and stock coil AIO cloud chuck vaping to 1 month long vapers who are using pods. They're not going to have the foggiest idea what the fuck I'm talking about if I start rambling on about technical crap that me and you know about, but they don't. That was the problem that I done with the first recordings of season 2. I had to fucking delete the lot. Just a lot. Whole fucking folder. Right click delete. Because I knew that when I started going down that road of being too technical, the rest of the fucking season followed the same fucking path. Bollocks. Anyway. Yeah. These things are sent to triers. I need to remember that. Keep it fucking simple. Same thing for ECig 101 Season 3, which is when the Chemnovatic stuff starts to be rolled in. That's all about e-liquids. It's all about DIYing. Can't really get too technical with that either, because that's basically there to introduce the concept of making your own liquid to people that have just started stock coil sub-ohming because of Season 2. This is what happens when you're like me and you don't sit down and type a script up, or you don't sit down and make long bullet point lists. You just freeform. Because the thing about me is, if I was to sit down and read a script, you would know I was reading a script because I sound completely different. Or if I was to sit down, again with the tablet sitting next to the camera at lens level and read off a bunch of bullet points, you're going to know, trust me, you're going to know I was reading off a bunch of bullet points because I sound completely different. That's why there's no scripts. There's very, very few notes when I'm doing reviews. Very few notes when I'm doing reviews. But for what is essentially a documentary style video, which is what the ECig 101 series essentially is, it's kind of hard doing it, especially getting into the more technical side of things. Especially, I mean, season 4 is going to be a bastard because that's all about rebuildables. But sitting down talking about stock coil sub-ohm tanks, battery safety. What's a stock coil sub-ohm tank? Why is it called a stock coil sub-ohm tank? What's inside that stock coil? How's it put together? What's all the menu stuff that you're seeing on your single battery box mod? What's temp control? What's variable voltage? What's variable wattage? What's bypass? Why are we using wattage in the first place? Why the fuck are we using temp control anyway? It's those kind of questions that are being answered by the ECig 1 Season 2 series. The basic questions that a pod user that's been vaping for a month is going to ask people in general. It's the whole point in Season 2. I hope I went down the right path with the re-recording. I think I have. Yeah, I think I have. To the handful, and it's literally just, it's less than a handful actually, the handful of people that have seen the rough recordings, they were happy with them. So I can only wait and see. That's all I can do, folks. I can only wait and see. Anyway. Wow, I've rambled for more than 30 minutes. Damn, I think that basically covers it, folks. So, yeah. Last thing, very, very last thing to cover. Next Thursday, which is Thursday, the 1st of December actually, the very first day of December, next Thursday should be the last of the big auctions on the channel. I'm thinking Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. I'm thinking Great Ormond Street. That's where the money's going to go. I'm still not sure yet though, but yeah, the last of the big auctions is going to be taking place in this channel during the UK Vape Show on the 1st of December. There is an Asmodus Minikin 2 Kodama still in its box, unused, that managed to creep in. I knew I had one of those kicking around in that office somewhere, but for the most part it's mostly dual battery box mod kits with an RTA chucked in and another tanker dripper chucked in on top of that, with 5 or 6 pod kits that are going to be chucked in the box as well. So yeah, keep an eye out for the UK Vape Show this coming Thursday, because the last of the big auctions is going to be taking place on the channel, and after that it's going to be smaller auctions every 3 or 4 months, like maybe 4 or 5 boxes, just to keep the piles of stuff that form in the studio down to a manageable level. Anyway, that's basically it from me, folks. As always, thanks for watching and have a good one.